the drivers did have a competition meeting this weekend at Talladega. NASCAR brought together the drivers, Goodyear, some NASCAR executives and competition, and says, here's what we're looking at to try to improve the racing, short tracks, mid tracks, whatever it might be. And I thought they had some really good ideas. And so I'm positive, I feel pretty positive leaving that meeting that, it's on their radar. They want to make some changes. How quickly we can implement them, I don't know. But then, my most optimistic part of that, and me and Dale Jr. are certainly on the same page as this, is that tires. That's going to be a big one, right? We got to get back to more fall off. And Goodyear, came to us and says, listen, we understand that the tires play a big role here. The first year, next gen, we were trying to be a little bit more common with our tires. Like, this is just the short track tire. Here's the speedway tire. Here's the intermediate tire. That made it easier for us, and we got very conservative with our mixtures of compounds to make the tire softer or harder. They went more towards the hard side just to be safe, right? They don't want a bunch of blown tires first year, next gen.
Yeah.
There are already enough issues of things breaking and stuff. They didn't want to be part of that discussion, right? Totally understandable. But now they said, hey, we feel more comfortable now that we've got some races under our belt and now a season that we can be a little bit more aggressive with our tire compounds and make them a little bit more individualized like they used to be. We used to have probably, 7 or 8 probably different compounds, because the same tire that you need for Phoenix is not really the same tire that you need for Richmond, even though they're pretty close in length, size, all that. The surface itself is very different, so it wears the tire out differently. So I think they are a big part of our competition and are a big part of the lap time variation in which we're trying to get to. And to hear them say, we're on it. We know we have some options that we think we need to explore. We're going to do some tire testing and find something a little bit more aggressive. And we told them too that they need to leave a tire test nervous, because what happens is we end up tire testing on a racetrack that is green, which green means there's not much rubber on it, so it wears the tire out super quick. And when you're tire testing those conditions, Goodyear at times will panic and say, oh, well, we don't want to wear tires out and then blow out, so we have to go to a more conservative compound that's a little bit harder, doesn't wear out as much, won't fall off as much. They need to leave these tire tests going, oof, it might make it, it might not, because by the time we get around to the actual race weekend, that track gets so rubbered in that the tire wear goes nearly away fully. So they're on it. That was a very good meeting. I was very confident that between NASCAR, Goodyear, and the drivers, we're all on the same page of how we're going to get this all fixed for the better.
Yeah, so if you're at a tire test and you leave there on the edge, based on those track conditions, when you get to the race, you got to scale it back probably 30% or so, because you're going to have more rubber on the track. It's not going to wear nearly as much as it did during the test. Yeah,
absolutely. And we said, too, that you almost want to have the fear of wearing out a tire. I remember we were talking about Martinsville. You used to be able to run about 15, 20 laps in practice before your left rear would go bald. It would be down to the cords, nothing left. But by the time the race happened, you could run 100 laps on left side tires. The track changes that much. And so doing some tire tests right after a race weekend, I think would be beneficial, because the track is rubbered in. Hopefully you have no rain overnight on Sunday. I think from a team standpoint, maybe you just make it random and say, hey, 2 Toyotas, 2 Fords, 2 Chevys, randomly pick them. Hey, you got drawn. Do you want to stay here overnight and test tomorrow for 6 hours, right? That way we don't spend a bunch of money as race teams putting data on the cars and all that other stuff. It's certainly, we could work it out as race teams to not be super costly to us to help NASCAR out with this initiative.
Another topic last week, middle of the week, Austin Dillon, the 3-team penalized 60 points, 5 playoff points, 75 grand, and crew chief Keith Rodden was suspended 2 races, one of which was served this last weekend at Talladega. Citing sections of the rule book, overall assembled vehicle rules, in which the underwing assembly, mounting, and underwing stay assembly hardware, all of this sounds very foreign to me, but to you, I'm sure it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a whole lot of facts about it, but it sounds like from I listened to Andy Petrie on Race Hub last week right after the penalties got assessed, and it sounds like maybe some things were not, some bolts maybe weren't tightened as much as they should have been. So what happens is, and I actually encourage people to follow Bozy. I'm not sure his last name on Twitter.
Tata.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but he's a great guy who illustrates when speaking foreign like that, he can translate it for you, Jared, and make it a little bit more simpler and show you what they're talking about. So make sure you give him a follow. Jared's going to find his name here shortly.
Yeah, it's at Bozy, Bozi, Tatarevich. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it.
Oh, wow.
From my soccer history. Tatarevic.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say that it had to do with the underwing. It had to do with the assembly of the underwing. So, more than likely, they didn't tighten things as much as they should. So, something kind of, it will go over inspection, and the car will sit there and they will scan it. Oh, it's legal. But then once air gets underneath of it and starts pushing it up, if bolts are loose, or maybe you didn't tighten something up as much, or maybe you over tighten something and it flex, like it could move when the air gets under there and to an illegal position. But then once you slow back down to no speed, it goes back to, we used to do that with the outer body when we had steel outer bodies all the time. You would see the left side door, the right side door flexing huge. Like we would make them so thin and flimsy that when the car's sitting there through inspection, the right side looks perfectly straight. And as soon as you get a little bit of air on the right side, the whole right side caved in and made for an aerodynamic advantage on the racetrack. So those are games that we played on the outer body for years, but looks like maybe they might have been playing it a little bit on the underbody.
So does that add downforce? How does that affect the car?
Yeah, you certainly are going to do it to gain an advantage for downforce. Now at Martinsville, is the juice worth the squeeze there? Probably not. But, I listen to people say, well, it's not an advantage at this track. Well, trust me, they're doing it this track. They were doing it last week and the week before. And, it's something that, isn't just happening during that week. It just got caught that week. But yeah, you do it to gain an aerodynamic advantage.
Yeah, you're trying to keep teams from trying to do that stuff, right? It's attempting that. And then last one, colleague won their appeal and a complete overturn of the penalty. Yeah.
I talked to Chris Rice right after their penalty. We had a couple phone calls, and Matt Colleague is someone I really admire and respect quite a bit with that whole organization and everyone there. That's good for them. I mean, it's good for them, certainly. Now, is it the right thing? Yes and no, right? Because I think that Hendrick got off. I don't think anyone's going to debate that they got off on their penalty. But since they got off, you need to let Colleague off as well, right? This was NASCAR inserting themselves in there and saying, that was wrong. I'm sorry, we're going to have to make another wrong to try to make this right? Which I respect that. I think, by the letter of the law, they both should have been penalized to whatever the full extent of the penalty was. But once the precedent was set from the Hendrick penalty, I think it was the right thing for NASCAR to talk to Bill Mullis and say, let's give him his points back and keep it consistent with the Hendrick. Now, I wish they did that with mine. I wish NASCAR executives would have got involved in mine. But it's tough. It's a tough position for them to be in. I mean, we're seeing it week in, week out now. I think Kyle Busch was even mentioned in the Corey LaJoie thing.
Maybe someone else tries to do the same thing you did, and
yeah,
they give it back.
I needed a lot of answers for that, the whole Corey LaJoie thing, because it sounded like he cut and pasted my comments and on his own podcast. NASCAR owns the podcast. Let's preface it, put the little fine print in there, but he got no penalty. The explanation I got from NASCAR on that, because of course I'm going to ask questions, and then Kyle Busch is texting me. He's like, "What the f-? Like he said the same thing, like literally the same thing. Even said that he was trying to get a caution out of it.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty blatant." And I got a very long-winded political answer, but I left there at least saying, I hear you. I don't believe you, but I hear you. Is that they said that Corey's words and his actions did not match. I said, I think they matched perfectly. I thought in my case, my words and my actions didn't match. And I even had information and proof that it didn't match.
Yeah.
Listen, I think if NASCAR could do it all over with, they wouldn't have f***ed with me and what I did or said. But it's water under the bridge at this moment. I said, listen, this is what you opened yourself up to by setting this precedent. You're gonna have people questioning every single week. Well, how's this different? How's that different? Right? You just want NASCAR to be consistent, and that's all I ask. Is that all right? Well, if I am the precedent that you set, then you must enforce that each and every week because that's what you wanted, right? That's the decision you made, the box yourself you put yourself in. So we'll just see if they start getting more consistent or not. But I thought that Corey got away with one there for sure.
Yeah, that's my question. Do you think that this is a first step into
Which, by the way, let me just stop. That sucks. I think what Corey said was fine. I got no issues in what Corey said. He's given people who were listening an insider's perspective of like what his mindset was in that moment. I mean, that's good for our sport, but it's not what NASCAR wanted as a precedent, right? And so I think I got nothing against Corey. He got away with one for sure. But I wish that we could speak more freely like that. And maybe they're saying from now on, you can say whatever you want, right?
That's
maybe.
what I'm wondering is now that Corey said this and they didn't do anything. Now, again, it was on a NASCAR run show, but is this the new precedent? Did they realize with your penalties, like, hey, we f***ed up. We can't do anything about this now. It is what it is. But all right, going forward, we'll let y'all say what you want. I guess we won't know until 3-4 more cases down the road. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I did ask the question again, and I really did not get an answer. How do you self-police, as you state in your opening statement? You want us to do. You want us to self-police. How do you do that without manipulating the race? It is impossible. Still haven't got an answer for that one, but we'll see. Let it go. We're going to let it go. But it's just interesting. It is news, though, right? I mean, media outlets were talking about it, and Kyle Busch made statements in the media about he doesn't understand how different it was, because it wasn't different.